Hey guys, it's Story. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Story and I talk about books and streaming. Today is a really fun video where I tend to piss some people off. I'm going to be talking about my personal top 5 worst books of 2021. First and foremost, please excuse my voice. I am sick right now. Let's go ahead and get into the worst books I read this year. So I'm gonna do this how I do it every year. I go over my top 5 worst books of the year. The next books up are 3 stars, which are average reads for me. So those obviously aren't necessarily good or bad. So these truly are the worst books I read this year. I will say my top 3 is probably the actual worst books I read, and then 4 and 5 are kind of like books I didn't enjoy, but they weren't truly horrible. They are 2.5 stars. So please be nice to me. So this first one is probably going to make some people click off the video. I tend to have unpopular opinions, so again, just remember that books that people like, other people don't. Books that people don't like, other people like. So, you know, who really cares? This is totally subjective. Reading in general is subjective. I know it hurts your heart when someone talks about a book you truly love. I'm not here to talk crap. I'm going to talk, you know, why I didn't like it personally, but I'm not gonna sit here and slander all of these books or the authors or the publishers or anything like that. So with that being said, coming in at number 5, which is the least worst book on this list, is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Let it be known that I love V.E. Schwab, Victoria Schwab, whatever you want to call her. Every book I have read up until this book. Here's the thing about this one. This is the very first book I read in 2021, and so it put a very bad taste in my mouth. It took me so long to get to this book. This book is so much longer than it needs to be. That is the true criticism I have, and of course people that love it want to, you know, stay in that world and that setting and that theme and with those characters and all that, so I get it if they don't find it as a problem, but it just dragged on and on and on. And of course that's Addie LaRue's life. Her life has just dragged on and on forever, so it makes sense. I guess I should explain the book if you don't know of it, although this is a extremely popular book. At the time when I read it, I did not see any negative reviews because I read it in the beginning of 2021, but as time has gone, there are a ton of people that really do not like this book as well. So it's a very polarizing book. If you haven't tried it yet, you're probably going to either hate it or love it. My recommendation is you should read this book if you really like aesthetics or themes of books. If you don't care about characters or plot or, you know, where the story goes, what the point of it is, things that actually happen. I read for entertainment, and this is not an entertaining book. It's just a very kind of hard to explain, but it's definitely a good book for a certain like aesthetic, mood, theme, kind of like delve yourself into this world, but not necessarily get anything out of it, in my opinion. I had a problem with the characters. The characters just didn't live up to anything for me. I found the main character extremely bland. I hated the first half of the book where you are just following her throughout her life. You are time jumping to the past in the 1500s, whenever, and then to present day. Our main character, Addie LaRue, cannot be remembered by anyone. She made a deal with the devil. We actually don't know if he's the devil, just a dark force, dark god, I guess, where she wanted to be free the rest of her life, basically, and independent, because she didn't want to have to be forced to marry a man. And it was, you know, back in the time when that happened, and this is set in France as well. And so she makes a deal with the devil. No one can remember her, so a lot of things happen because of this. Obviously she can't like hold a job, she can't hold relationships, she can't make money, she can't live anywhere. So, but she is in France for a while, in Paris, but you mainly follow her through New York. And of course, over time, this got a lot of hate because of the lack of representation for different races. Obviously, you're following Addie throughout hundreds of years, and we don't see anyone of color. I think we see one person of color at the very end of the book. There's a lot of historical references, and it's basically only historical references for white men. So I don't know if it was intentional or anything about that, but I originally did not like this book for other reasons, and then once that came to light, it obviously like made me think even more about it in the sense of not liking it. But not a lot happens plot wise either. Like I said, the first half of this book, you're just following her life, and so it's extremely slow. I think I started enjoying it a bit more once we were introduced to Henry, who's a love interest. I am a villain girl. I love following villains and bad boys and stuff stuff like that, but The Devil just did not live up to what I thought it was gonna be. Like, usually with this type of character, I'm just waiting for them to re-enter the story, and I never really cared. I think I just wanted them to re-enter because I was so bored. My door just randomly opened and that was really creepy. What I was saying was I just wanted things to happen because I was bored. I was not actually interested in the plot or the characters or really anything. It was just way too long. I will say though, I think about this book a lot. This is one of those books I always think back to because of that specific mood, aesthetic, and theme. I had a specific feeling while reading the book and I wanted to get out of it. Like, I wanted to stop reading it completely. I did DNF it for a little bit, but then I forced myself to finish it. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I go back to it. When you have books with extremely good settings like that, and specific themes and aesthetics, it's hard to like just cut it off, especially if you haven't read another book like that. So I will say it is really unique in that sense. So if you like books like that, then I would recommend it, I guess. But yeah, I gave this 2.5 stars. I think the mood and setting and all that was a 3 for me. It made it go up a little bit, but everything else was just so bad that I ended up sticking to a 2.5. So I'm sorry if this is your favorite book of all time. It's a lot of people's. Good for you. I'm happy you found your favorite book of all time. But for me, unfortunately, it was not. Next 2 books on this list are more like disappointing reads. I didn't rate them high either. They aren't necessarily good books for me, but they were just disappointing. I did have high hopes for them, so it hurts even more obviously when you do have an expectation for a book and it doesn't meet it. So for number 4, that is Untamed by, I can't remember the author's name. I know it, but I can't think of it. This book's specific problem was I had way too high of expectations. It really was. I feel like if you don't have high expectations going into this book, then you're gonna be fine. I also thought this book was solely about feminism. It's way more than that. There's other things, and so I was specifically looking for a book that was more about sexism and feminism, and so obviously these are both my problems, so I do take responsibility for that. I had high expectations and I thought it was something that it wasn't, so that is my fault. But I will say the reason I didn't enjoy it so much was because I felt like the author was saying things as a matter of fact, whereas usually when you read books like this where they are a combination of essays, they are introducing ideas and it's kind of in open interpretation for you to think on it yourself, which is why I like books like that. I love reading essays, a collection of essays, because I feel like I get to experience a different viewpoint and perspective while also kind of contemplating and getting my own perspective, whereas this was not the case. The author is definitely telling you everything as a matter of fact. It just gets a little ridiculous at times. The only thing I can think of right now is the author kept saying her daughter was like a legend, like she was going to be revolutionary, like a messiah, like a god, just because she had the same, I guess, viewpoints as her, but at a really young age she caught on to it, and of course she did because she was raised by that. And so she just really idolized her daughter, and it's so weird to like even comment on this because these are real people, you know, they're real lives and I don't know them, but just from what I read, like it just was a little weird, I guess. It just felt very ridiculous to me at times. But the biggest problem definitely was expecting something that it wasn't, but also like just very preachy, and that's not the type of collections of essays I want to read. I totally respect the author and like what she's doing. She seems like a really big humanitarian. I'm not saying I disagreed with her viewpoints either. It's not necessarily that I disagreed. You know, some essays were just like amazing, and then other essays were just like, what was that? What, you know? And so it just felt very inconsistent, and I know a lot of people give this 5 stars, so I was very surprised. I just thought I was going to love this book. I did like the feminist aspects, but I think that's probably like, those were my highlights of the book. So I get this 2.5 as well. I could not give it 3 stars because that would have been an average read. I just felt like it wasn't good. So that's that. This next book is the only one I actually have physically. I have an entire reading vlog, 30-40 minute reading vlog that is very detailed if you are a fan of this series and this world and this author. So I will put in a card above if you haven't seen it already. But I have very strong feelings about this, so I will try to wrap it up since I did have that long video. But coming in at number 3, also at 2.5 stars, is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it's like super metallic. As most of you know, I'm a huge Caraval fan. My favorite character is Jax. This series has been marketed as Jax's series. It's really not. You don't get any Jax content. So obviously I was very, very disappointed. This is probably the most disappointing read I have ever had. I've never been so disappointed in a book. All these books are 5 out of 5 stars for me. It's just like my thing, you know? It's like, it's usually this world I don't want to leave, inhale every second of it and embrace every second of it and just get as much Jax as I can. And that just wasn't the case here. Jax was written so differently. There's one scene where I felt like he was written the same, and I got a taste of it. And it's literally in 3/4 of the book, and all these other things happen, the decisions that were made and the route that the author is going down just doesn't feel like the Caraval world. The writing doesn't feel like the Caraval world. The characters don't. It's just completely lost its whimsical, magical element to it. It's lost the mood, the theme, the aesthetic, the fun, the entertainment of it. Just everything I adore about the Caraval world is not in this book. And so I will be reading the second book when it comes out, just because I'm hoping that it has second book syndrome in like the first book, that we're gonna get, you know, a whole lot more of the world and the characters and Jax. This next book, I'm hoping we learn more about Jax. There's a lot of things teased and we just don't get anything. So extremely disappointing. The marketing is 100% false advertising. I am in marketing. I can honestly tell you that. They really want you to read this book, so they keep telling you that you don't have to read the Caraval series to read this book, but that is false. It's a lie. Just to put it bluntly, there are major spoilers in this. I would not recommend starting with this. You can if you want. If you choose to do that, I don't know why anyone would do that, because you're spoiling the entire series, which is 3 books. So you read 1 book to spoil yourself for 3 books. I don't get it. Really upset with the publisher to push that and have the author push that. So yeah, and of course the next book is already being released for 2022, and so they're already trying to push pre-orders, when in reality they just made 8 versions of this book that they push people to pre-order so that they can, you know, get on the bestsellers list. And so I feel very strongly about it. I'm not going to get too much into it, but just know this is the most disappointing book of all time for me. I've never experienced this kind of disappointment before. I can't believe it even happened, to be honest, because from the start to the finish, I just like my mouth was hanging open at how, I hate saying this, but this book is so bad. This book is so bad. There's a lot of really good ratings for it, because Caraval fans are very loyal. You all know I love Caraval, and I will be giving the second book a chance, but if it's not good, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I just feel like my personal favorite character has just been destroyed and ruined, and I want him back. I want him to, I want him, okay? Not entertaining, not fun, very boring. I don't know what's happening with this. Very beautiful, obviously, and there's a ton of editions if you want to spend $500. All right, now these next 2 books, the top 2 worst books of the year for me, really are just bad books. Number 2 being The Roommate by, I've forgotten all of these authors' names, I'm so sorry, but you will see it on the screen here. I have a thing for romance books, especially like rom-com type books, and this definitely seems like it by the cover. So you are following a girl who has been in love with a boy forever. They are friends. He's basically been stringing her along, and she knows that, but she's just kind of waiting until they end up together. Is supposed to move in with him as friends because I believe she is starting a new job. She's working for her aunt at like a PR firm or something like that. She gets there and finds out that this guy she likes is a musician, and they just booked a tour. So he ends up renting out his room to his friend named Josh, who every love interest in every romance book is named Josh, and I can't stand it because my dad is named Josh. It really, really bugs me. Just in general, having the same name for every love interest in every romance book just bugs me, but the fact that it's my dad's name is just weird. With that being said, Josh ends up being, as she finds out, a porn star, one of the most famous porn stars like ever, and he's been judged by this his whole life, and so this is a really good setup. Our main character is very type A, Josh is very type B, and so obviously there's going to be some like hate to love here, so I was just like ready for it. I'm really big on hate to love. This book, so disappointing. This book was not good, definitely not entertaining. The smut I thought was going to be better. I would say that The best part of this book probably is the smut, and the smut is not great anyways. So everything else about the book was just bad. Characters are bad, plot's pretty bad. We go down this whole porn star world, which I just didn't expect. We introduce an ex-girlfriend and nothing happens with her. It's I don't even know really how to explain it, but I did not enjoy the writing. I didn't enjoy anything about this book. I will say the only reason I finished it probably was because of the smut, but like honestly, the smut really wasn't that good for the guy being a porn star. So it's that trope where the girl, I can't remember if she's a virgin or not, but she just doesn't have a lot of experience and the guy has like way too much experience. So it's that trope if you like that trope. It's definitely the roommate trope, which I thought they were gonna do better at and it would have been more entertaining, but it just wasn't. You know they like each other from the beginning. They supposedly hate each other, but as soon as she finds out he's a porn star, they start hooking up so that he can teach her, but she's like disgusted with him at the same time. It just doesn't make sense. They add some drama with like work, so like the porn star stuff and then also like her PR stuff, and it was unnecessary, it wasn't entertaining. So yeah, just bad book overall for me personally. So this did receive 2 stars. You'll notice that I don't really give books 1 star, I guess, really ever, unless it just really was like the worst book I ever read, because I feel like authors deserve at least 2 stars for just like writing it or having some sort of something, you know, I don't know. But yeah, this was 2 stars, not very good. And now coming in at number 1 on my worst books of the year list is Before We Were Strangers by Renee something. Sorry, I don't know the author's names. I should look it up, but I'm just lazy. I originally picked up this book because of a book club podcast I listen to every now and then, said it was their favorite book of 2020. So I made a mental note of that, and when I was looking for a romance audiobook to listen to, I chose that. Despite the cover looking so horrible, it just looks very old, like it's just an old romance book, so you already know it's gonna be bad. So I had some doubts about it, but at the end of the year, they basically come out with their top 5 like favorite books, and then they do like the common denominators, and this was number 1. So like for one person it would be like number 1, one person would be number 5, one person wasn't even on their list. So it comes to show that it's really not a common denominator. And these 4 girls I listened to, it's called the Redheads Book Club, by the way. I will link the podcast down below. They also have an Instagram so you can see like what books they're reading and stuff. Love it. It's such a good podcast, and I don't read every book they're going to read because I'm just not good at book clubs in general, to be honest. But yeah, I now know that it's not truly their favorite books. They're all way different readers. One person likes romance, another person likes fantasy, another person likes nonfiction. Like they're just way different readers, and they always have different reviews for each book. So I now know not to trust it so much. I need to figure out who reads like me, but it's very hard when there's 4 people and you don't see their faces. Anyways, that's why I picked this up. This is a really bad book though. So the reason this is called Before We Were Strangers is because our main 2 characters were friends in college, but at some point we know that they drifted off and they haven't seen each other for years, like 10 years, 20 years. It's been a really long time. So this is that kind of like second chance trope or friends to lovers trope, because in college they start out as friends and then obviously you're revisiting that relationship and they're trying to find each other. So a lot of people would love this trope. Unfortunately, this book does all the tropes like of any romance books. Ended up looking up when this book was written, and it was so much newer than I thought. 2018 or 17 or something like that. And I was like, whoa, I thought this was like a book written in 2000 or something. The writing is really bad. I wouldn't recommend the audiobook either. I think the narrators probably kept me listening. I've realized I don't know if I like the second chance trope. I haven't read it since this book because I'm really not sure. I'm kind of scared to read it now. It really didn't do it for me. It's the same trope that so many romance books have, where the girl is super quirky and different and fun, and then the guy just isn't. Like he's just more boring and type A. And the only book I've read where that's the case that I've enjoyed is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. I feel like it actually relates to that type 7 personality type more than any of the other books. But of course the love interest in this scenario always ends up just being too bland. They're trying to make the girls so different and quirky, I hate that word, that the boy just kind of gets lost. And so as a romance reader, you really want to fall in love with the guy. And so it doesn't work out if you're not truly into the relationship and into the characters individually. So this just wasn't the book for me. And the the way it turned, because you go into the future and some things happen, and I can't say because it's a spoiler if you choose to read this book, but I just would stay away from this book. I have seen it on like 2 other people's TBR since I've read it, and I'm just like, no, don't read this book. Which I shouldn't be like that, but that's just my personal experience with this book, and I just really wouldn't recommend it. I wish I could tell you what happened. It's just the same trope, and I think the reason the girls I listened to liked it so much was because they might have not experienced that in a book before and didn't expect it, so it was kind of like a plot twist for them, but it's just such a bad plot twist. So before the plot twist, it's just so boring. You're just with these people in college, and it's just really boring and bland, and then the plot twist happens, and I was not entertained after that. Hated the characters, hated the writing, so that's how I feel about that. So yeah, just know if there's any book on this list I would not recommend giving a chance or picking up like at all, it would be this book. But I will say a lot of people have been putting it on their TBRs, and I don't know if those people ended up liking it or if they still haven't read it. I need more from other people, because like I said, I know of people that really like it, but it just felt like they weren't developed romance readers. In that book club, only one of them was a romance reader, so I just feel like the ridiculous plot twist they liked, and so they liked where the story went, whereas I just did not enjoy this entire book. It was just really bad. So that concludes the worst books I read in 2021. Thank you guys so much for being here, for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe if you haven't already, if you feel like it. And I'll see you guys in my next one.